It's the Sancho Loco Show, and on YouTube, let's talk about it. I am blessed to have a very special guest in front of me, luisjrodriguez. And Luisjrodriguez is most notably known for being a poet, an artist, and now running for governor.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
So I thank you for having, and we have your son here.
My son Ramiro.
Ramiro, and I heard the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so I heard you're doing poetry as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so we do this thing called Let's Taco About It, where I usually take a celebrity and artist out to eat, and
So I hope you don't mind me eating.
yeah, no, it's okay. It's acceptable on this channel. I don't know about any other channels, but on our channel we welcome it.
Okay.
And maybe you can even give a little critique on what you're eating after.
All right.
So we're in the beautiful city of Garden Grove, Orange County, and you came all the way down from Los Angeles, so I appreciate that. And tell us a little bit. I know this might be redundant and repetitive, but you just got back from Radio Suerte with Maria Luisa Luna and the Party Train, and now you're here. And what I wanted to ask you was, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and where you grew up.
Well, so for me, I grew up in Watts and then in the East LA area, San Gabriel Valley, and then East LA proper. And I grew up in a poor neighborhood, but I also got involved with all the violent end of it. This is in the 60s. I got involved in gang when I was 11 years old. I got heavily involved. I was shooting people, stabbing people.
Wow. Did you ever get locked up for any of that stuff?
Yeah, I got arrested for murder when I was 16, and then arrested for attempted murder at 17. I say that, but I never murdered nobody. It's just the world that you're in. I did shoot somebody when I was 17, he'd survived. The world was topsy-turvy. I was on heroin for 7 years. I was homeless for 3 years. This is the madness, the la vida loca I was in.
Right.
But I was fortunate that I was there during the Chicano movement.
Okay.
So people from the movimiento that were part of the walkouts, that were part of the Chicano moratorium against the Vietnam War, the Brown Berets, all these people were coming to these poor neighborhoods and working with people like me, and I was one of them.
Is that what made you so passionate about your culture and growing up? Just to see, because a lot of times pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when you're in such a active, violent, environment, you want to do better for yourself. And as we get older, we get wiser. And now you're running for governor. We'll get into that in a little bit. But is that what kind of made you change your perspective?
I think I didn't realize how hungry I was to know that. And when you're in the street, you don't think about nothing but the street, my barrio, everything. But then when somebody opened up the world, like my imagination grew. Hey, there's our community. We're all over the place. We're indigenous. We're indígena. When people were opening up worlds to me, I didn't know how hungry I was for it. I really wanted to learn this stuff, and that's what helped me, because then I wanted to know more. And a lot of my homies went with me, but then they couldn't follow all the way. I really carried it to another level.
Well, everybody always talks about the negative experiences in their life, and they always talk about what they went through, or growing up in the barrio, or the things that they did. But what I wanted to ask you was, you growing up in that environment, what was the positive people that were around you? Was there any positivity?
That's a great way to look at it. Yes, there was. And I think a lot of it was that movimiento. I had a strong sense of justice even when I was a kid. And then when I became aware about the social injustices, I took it to that level.
Yeah.
Yes, we were all being oppressed, we were all being hurt. There was various race discrimination. When I was a kid going to school in Watts, they would punish me for speaking Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So to me, that was really the connection. My own personal injustice that I went through, but also seeing the society, it pulled me through. I was reading Malcolm X, James Baldwin, all the Chicano writers at the time, Jose Montoya, Ricardo Sanchez, there wasn't too many. I was eating up this work because, again, I was so hungry to be part of something. I thought I was all about the barrio, and I was. But the barrio had limited my imagination to just live and die for the barrio. That's all I was thinking. When these activists came, they opened up a whole world to me. There's more to this world. There's more that I can learn, and I wanted to do that.
So you educated yourself. Did you educate yourself outside of Did you do prison time or no?
No, I ended up doing county jail time and then juvenile hall. But what happened is the county jail time, I was supposed to do my first state prison term, but the community stepped out on my behalf.
Wow.
They actually showed up to court to speak for me.
Wow, somebody spoke on
and
your
the
behalf?
judge even said nobody does this. And in those days, nobody did. But they were there for me. So that really won me over to, I don't want to be in prison.
Right.
And I'm going to do whatever I could. I walked out of that jail.
But usually, unless you've done something notable in the community, it's hard to get people to stand up for you.
The reason why is because I did do notable things. Even though I had 1 foot in the barrio, 1 foot in la vida loca, I also helped the community. They were organizing a food bank. They were organizing the schools. I led the school walkouts. I was being active. I went to the moratorium. I was being active while also being in the barrio. You know what I mean? And one was going to win out. And it almost was going to be the barrio. But eventually, especially the last jail term, I decided I'm going to get out of heroin. My first heroin withdrawals were in the county jail.
Who got you started on heroin? How did you, is your homeboys or?
Yeah, but what you do is you start small. You start by putting heroin on your weed. You know, you snort it.
Yeah.
And eventually you're shooting up in the muscles, what we call skin popping. And then eventually, because you need it, you start doing intravenously. I started at 12, and then at 15 I started doing intravenously.
Okay.
And again, the life it's all part of that crazy life. Eventually, everybody's doing it. All my homeboys became heroin addicts. And many of them died. They died young men. I OD'd 3 times, but I didn't die, obviously. But it's the world that we were in.
It's kind of sad that our culture, when you're growing up in the hood or the barrio, whatever you call it, there isn't anybody that kind of is the voice of reason when you do stuff like that. Like when you're doing heroin, it's kind of acceptable, for your homeboys.
Which is sad. It was acceptable. Everybody was doing it. It was like, this is the thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think what you're pointing out to is that okay, for me, heroin and even guns didn't come from my neighborhood.
Right.
But we played ourselves into it. And once it did come in,
yeah,
we used the guns, we used the drugs. And this is where we destroyed ourselves as people, and as we hurt ourselves, we hurt our community. I think others come in by design, put things in there. Most people didn't do it, I get it, but the ones that did fell into it. And unfortunately, we did damage to our community.
Right.
And I was part of that. I have to admit that I played a role. When I decided I didn't want to do it no more, I gave it all up. I didn't want to do it no more. I was done. And then I wanted to just be part of the change. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So, being that you experienced ODs, right? You've OD'd in your time?
OD'd. I've been shot at 6 times. I never got hit.
Wow.
How do you explain that? People say...
That's like God...
Well, that's what they say, God's on your side. But my attitude was always, well, why wasn't he on the side of my other homies?
Yeah.
I never could believe that God was on my side.
Or luck.
I think there's a luck of the bullet there. Now, people say luck is really God, but I said, look, I get it. There's a higher power and everything, but I think a lot of the stuff is just, I'm very fortunate. You know what I'm saying? I have to count my blessings. I shouldn't, far better people than me got hit once, gone. Far better people than me got a heroin overdose. I can't say that I'm better, because that's a survival thing that you carry. Why did I survive? I had that survival syndrome. How come I made it? None of my homies made it. I carried it for a long time, but I realized.
Do you carry guilt? Because
well, I did that, but here's what I turned that guilt into. Then I better do some good with what I've been given. I better make the most of this life. You know what I mean? I'm doing it just for me. I'm doing it for my homies that didn't make it.
But when did the switch come on of good? Because a lot of the homies or a lot of the people that grew up, and there's still older vatos that are doing stuff.
But there was always good.
Yeah.
You have to humanize, just because on the outside looking in, that's all you see.
Mm-hmm.
But it's part of a culture. I was telling my dad, for instance, you have a homie, one of the main killers, right?
Right.
But they always have one buddy, so they're very close to.
Yeah.
They may be cold to everybody else, but that homie, they're laughing.
That's
they're
true.
Kicking it. They have their you know what I'm saying? So this is a killer, but he has these moments.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you believe Richard Ramirez was a good guy?
Yeah, right here. What I was saying, kind of following him, I think Richard Ramirez, as a human being, has a capacity. So is Charles Manson.
Right.
But I get the twistedness that happens.
Yeah, take a look.
And that twistedness, you can get over it, but sometimes you can get so twisted and you don't get enough help, it almost becomes impossible. It seems impossible.
To pull back, you believe?
I have known, like I say, there's homies I know that would do things like me. I would shoot people, I would stab them.
Right.
But I wasn't the worst homie in the neighborhood. There's guys that I wouldn't, you know, I mean, like these guys, they're unredeemable almost.
They're like a lost cause, would you say?
But I don't think they really are. They're just not being connected to in a way. Because I've gone to prison for 40 years. It's one of the things I didn't end up doing.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Let's back up here.
I've gone to prison to teach.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
No, I didn't do the state time, but I never forgot the homies I did.
Yeah.
So for 40 years, I went to prison doing poetry, doing readings, and teaching, creative writing. And I met a lot of homies there who were there for 30, 40 years. And they've changed their lives in prison. You know what I'm saying? They're not getting out. Some of them are doing life without possibility of parole, but they changed their life. There was something redeemable even then. It just took them a long time.
Well, you know, life imitates art. So, like, I believe certain aspects of life are poetic. Yeah. And so I feel like, you know, people can see the good in the bad. And maybe the way you move may not be the same way I move. But as Chicanos, growing up and seeing those things, I believe our culture is a very artistic culture, like, and that goes back hundreds of years.
Creativity to me is one of the ways to get through these things. For example, we work with guys that did 38 years. Now they're out for 30 years. They're good human beings. They murdered people.
Yeah, exactly.
But now they've developed. I work with them.
Did you ever meet that guy Kilroy?
I know about him, the white fence guy.
Okay,
yeah.
So I have a buddy, Wilson Antonio Ramirez, who just did a movie about him, and now I think it's on. I forget what Tubi TV, one of the apps that you get on your television.
Right.
And it's good to see. It's good to see the Chicano culture kind of coming out on these major platforms now. Like the movies are being shown in these apps and these movie apps. But my point is that he became a born again Christian.
You know what? But let me say something about that. Born agains prove the point.
Right.
I know a lot about those heavy duty gangsters became born again.
Right.
I have a nephew who is a pastor in Victory Outreach.
Right.
Now that's not my way of going. I didn't go that way.
Do you think it's sincere?
No, I think most of them are. I think people can play at everything. I've known people.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So, but I think most of them are. I went a different way. I went indigenous. I went completely
in touch with your.
I went spiritual practices.
Spiritual, yeah.
That way, but I think all of it is valid if it connects to you. I have seen stone cold killers, born again, Christians, decent human beings.
Right.
So and again, you're right, it gets manipulated too. I've seen that too. And the same goes for anybody, even those who claim to be indigenous and that's manipulating. But it really can work if you really take it seriously and you take in the spiritual end of it. It really can work. That's helped me. It's helped him. And
do you have a spiritual connection with God?
I do, but my idea of God is the way that the indigenous people saw it. Everywhere, everything. You know, not
energy, life.
Yeah, everything, not just the figure you can put up there. It's in all of us.
Now I know that you're connected to the indigenous part, right? Yeah. You do dancing. What got you into that?
I guess it was my father, but also there was some other elders when I was in prison. But even before I went to prison, they were trying to. So
you've done prison time as well.
Yeah.
13
and a half years in Illinois.
Do you mind me asking what you went to prison for?
2 attempt murders.
Okay.
No, 3 attempt murders, 2 on the police, 1 on a truck driver.
It was a serious thing.
Serious charges, yeah. Those are charges that could put you away for decades.
But I want to go back to that question when you asked me about Richard Ramirez.
Right. Instance, yeah, because I think that's an interesting thing.
I'm this bad to see. I don't believe in this concept of good and bad.
Right.
I really don't. I think about energy. What the Richard Ramirez and Charles Manson and Jeffrey Dahmers and all of these crazy dudes, there's an energy there that is negative. I believe in negative and positive because that's what we live by. But I feel like there are things that set them in that path in this life that we have to think about, you know?
Okay, respectfully, would you still make that statement if you did, like, do you know, well, it's hard to say that, but if you didn't do time, would you feel that way too? Would you feel that same perspective of, you know, thinking where there could be killers? Is
I
that?
grew up in a world of violence.
Mm-hmm.
So it has nothing to do with just prison.
Right.
It's just the world that we were living. So for instance, so then what? And it's the same thing that they labeled it. See, because of the spirit, my Mexica roots and everything, it's the same thing how they justified killing us because they're saying we're savages.
Right.
That we commit all these
That's
horrendous
true.
crimes.
Yep.
So now we have certain individuals that pretty much have been westernized by society and either by traumas, by poverty, by things in their life. I mean, even some of the white, you know, like Jeffrey Dahmer and Charles Manson people. But I feel like it's a bigger picture of how our society is, and we've lost and we've been disconnected to the energies of the Creator and or the universe, and over the centuries. And this is where a lot of this comes from. We've been around for thousands of years.
Yep.
I cannot say that we've had Jeffrey Dahmers thousands of years ago.
Yeah, because nobody really
Charles
knows.
Manson's, but do you believe we did? I don't. I don't know where that came from. I don't know how in our society now all of a sudden we have all these serial killers and.
Well, I've looked into some of this stuff, and I don't know if I'm right or not, but I've watched enough documentaries and read enough things to know that a lot of these killers that like the Iceman and some of these stone cold killers like Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, a lot of times it comes from your upbringing and whether your parents showed you love or they didn't show you love, and it kind of builds character from when you're a young man, and a traumatic event will happen in their life, and then they end up, you know, murdering people without a conscience, and they just continue down that road until they get caught, and then when they get caught, they look back and they realize, dang, this guy's got 10 bodies under his house.
Some of these people don't even look crazy. Richard Ramirez looked crazy.
Well, the BTK killer, look at that guy.
Looked crazy, but most of these guys look like Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy looked like
a handsome guy.
Yeah, good-looking guy.
Everybody wants to, generalize about what it is. You don't really know what you're dealing with until you get to know it. And I think they're all redeemable, but what is the path particular path they need? Because again, I've dealing with guys who murdered people, now they're decent human beings. They won't hurt nobody. Me and him did some stuff. So
let's get into this because I'm on for some reason this battery's, I think I'm recording in HD, so this battery's just going. Okay. But I really want to get to where you're headed. I know you have a lot of great poetry, and I want to touch on the fact that you as an individual, just to kind of summarize, you grew up in a harsh environment. You've done a lot of great things for the community as well as your son. You have a bookstore which you're trying to pass on something good that is lost nowadays. You can't even find a library nowadays, and I respect that tremendously. But what are some of the things that you want to tackle as a governor, and what are some of the things that are bothering you about this administration? And do you think what you're going to bring to the table is going to change any of that?
Well, this is what I want to do. I think the administration now, with Governor Newsom and the Democrats, and who are not as bad as the Republicans, I don't mind saying that.
Right.
But they're inept. They're just managing crisis.
Right.
They're not resolving them. They're not getting to the root of them. I want to bring the idea. Let's get to the root of why we have homelessness, why we have poverty, why we have crime. I just deal with the features of it.
Right.
And the back end where, there's criminals, let's just put them in prison. I said, no, get to the root. What is the world that these people grew up in? What is the world they're in? How do we give people on the front end the resources, connections, and love and caring that they didn't get, that caused them to fall apart at the back end? I'm trying to put a whole different way of thinking. A caring society versus one that's about how much profit I can make out of this world.
Well, I was watching, I don't know if you're in touch, in touch with like YouTube channels, Soft White Underbelly, Mark, I believe his name's Mark Laisha. Okay. He goes to Skid Row. Okay. And one of the things he was saying was that there's a lot of mental illness, and the government funds other programs, but they don't, like you mentioned, go to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is not putting people in houses and just leaving them there.
Right.
It's rehabilitation and finding out what these people
And
need.
many didn't even start mentally or drug addicts. But when you're in that world, you're going to go mentally off. But also drugs comes at you, just like in the barrio.
Yeah.
We didn't want to be heroin addicts, but all of a sudden you're in the poorest neighborhood, heroin is everywhere. It's a world by design that happens. And I think that people got to understand what homeless people really need is housing. Real, affordable, decent housing. I don't mean shelters. I don't mean encampments. I'm talking about real housing that we can do as a society. We can say society wants to meet these needs. Let's meet those needs.
Now, some of the issues are, homelessness, but what are some of the more what's one of the most important issues outside the scope of homelessness?
Well, one of them, of course, is the environment. We don't have to have a fossil fuel. California is the #1 fossil fuel state. We have a lot of industry related to fossil fuels. I get it. People are doing some good environmental things in California. We're kind of leading. But I think it's still not all the way through. We need clean, renewable energy. It's possible. It'll be actually more safe, and it'll be less costly. That's where I'm going with this.
Okay, being that Russia was part of our fuel supply, and now that's cut off due to the war that's going on in Ukraine. What do you think the government should do? Should they tap into some of the reserves, or?
Well, here's the thing. I really think that we've already proven that we can have zero emissions vehicles. No.
But do you feel like that's a feasible idea?
I think it's feasible, but the problem is they give it long range. By 2034, they give these long range. We got the technology now.
Right.
But we're not putting the money in it. We got the technology so that we don't have to depend on any fossil fuel. But they're playing at it or they're moving around with it, and the fossil fuel industry stays viable. Right now, it's the only really viable fuel source. But I say we've already proven that we don't need to do it that way.
Right.
And I would like to move quicker than just what people are saying. Oh, by 2054, we're going to have all this. No, let's move quicker because every day that we don't, the world gets worse and worse. And one of the other parts is the worst environment is in our neighborhoods, the poor Mexican, black neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Poor people of color get the worst of it. So I worked in industry in LA, East LA, and South Central, all that industry, toxic waste everywhere. I worked in the lead, remember that lead smelter that was killing off all those people?
Yes, sir.
I worked in that lead smelter.
Oh, wow.
I worked, so I know it's like, this is the world that was given to us, and then the industry leaves, but the poison is still underground. And it takes forever to clean it. We can do a lot better to fix our communities. Almost all the major oil drilling is in urban areas where poor people, mostly black and brown, are located. These are issues that I think we can do something about.
What do you think about the economy and jobs for the every race, white, black, brown? How can we get that jump started again? Because people were on programs, they were on food stamps, they're on unemployment. There's a lot of jobs out there, and I feel like there's not enough people getting back to work, even now.
Well, let me give you one idea. How about if they give us the hammer and nails and let us rebuild our community? And I mean hammer and nails is a metaphor. Could be
it's a metaphor.
Let us rebuild our communities.
How are we rebuilding?
Give us the resources, give us the hammer and nails, give us the tools, the training, the skills, get the people involved, and then get us doing it. Our communities could use a lot of work. The streets, the housing, you know what I'm saying? Even start there, the infrastructure.
Right.
Let us work our communities. They wouldn't do this when the Bloods and Crips were saying this after the 92 uprising. That was their statement. Give us the hammer and nails and we will rebuild our communities. Nobody took them seriously about that.
Your campaign is being led by a team of yours. How can people contribute to your campaign, and how can they be aware of the issues that you're addressing right now?
Perfect place is our website, luis4governor.org. Everything's there. Our issues, how to volunteer, how to donate, We have a volunteer page, the whole thing. Come to the website. We also have social media presence. You'll just put either Luis for governor or luisjrodriguez for governor, whatever you can find that's there. But the website will give you all the handles for all the social media too.
Yeah, we'll put it on the video as well. We're going to be adding titles, features. We're going to be adding social media platforms. Is there anything, any other things that you like to put out there to the public?
Well, no, thank you. Just thank you for having us, having this.
Oh, you're very
platform for
welcome.
us. You know, just vote, man. I mean, look, enough's enough. We need to make a difference. We need to make change. This is the opportunity. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this pandemic hit us hard, all of us, and now we're moving around now. Now we're starting to become more visible with one another. So let's do it when we go vote. Let's do it when we want to make that big old change.
That's right. I thank you guys for coming out. I want to give a big thanks to Fernando Escobar for putting this together. And man, I look forward to seeing you in office.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And peace, Sancho Loco Show. Let's talk about it. Thank you.